Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. One of the most central concepts for Epictetus' Stoic philosophy, particularly his ethics, and you'll see why it's so central in just a moment, is what in Greek is called prohairesis. And this is a term that Aristotle used. It had a very important role to play in his moral philosophy. Epictetus takes it and expands, it to mean something even more encompassing, and really places it at the core of the human person. It's going to get translated in English, depending on who is doing the work of translating, as something like faculty of choice, like I have here, will, faculty of will, moral purpose, a number of different things. Sometimes it's translated as mind as well, which can be a bit misleading. Now, there's a lot to say about this. This shows up in so many of the chapters of the 4 books of Epictetus' Discourses. And these are some of the key points that I wanted to hit on. You could think of it as the overall structure of the highest human, and also Epictetus is quite clear, this is something we share in common with God or the gods. It's a divine faculty. At one point he says that this is in fact a piece of God within the otherwise animal human nature. The prohairesis is not something radically distinct for Epictetus from the other things that he talks about as the highest faculty, the ruling faculty or the rational faculty, but you could think of it as a different side of it, the side that places the emphasis on choice, the effects of our choices and our actions and intentions, the structuring that takes place over time. So it encompasses, for example, the aversions and desires, these affective, being drawn towards something being judged to be a good, that's a desire, sort of a withdrawing or pushing away affectively from something that we deem to be an evil. Choices themselves all fall within this matrix, so you can think of it as the overall structure that's formed by choices, but also as what we use to make an individual choice. Judgments, dogmata, and hypolepses in Greek, these are quite important as well. And how we judge things is not simply necessitated in a mechanical process where input comes in and we have to spew that output out. We have some control over the black box part of it, you might say, the central part, in how we process things and arrive at judgments. How we also use our older judgments, which might be good ones or might be bad ones, might be reliable, might be unreliable. And all of these things fit together. There's a nexus coming together here in the faculty of choice, the prohairesis. Epictetus will actually say at some points in Book 1 that this is what the person is. So this is at the core of the human being. We might, to use different terms today, depending on what you mean by personality, say that it is the personality itself. There's a variety of language that we could use. Now, it's formed both by habituation, so by doing something over and over again, or by breaking oneself of habits. That's more often what has to be the case. You substitute a habit for another. But you have to do that by making choices. There's a reflexivity to this because you are using, unlike with other faculties, you are using the very faculty to work upon itself. Now, this also means we don't start out in a great state. So you could think of it as using the very, set of tools to expand the set of tools and to get rid of the bad tools and to fix the toolbox so things aren't falling out. We can come up with other metaphors, but that notion of reflexivity, that when I choose for myself, I'm not only using the faculty of will, I'm also choosing how I'm going to be using that faculty of will later, what's going to be available to me, what I'm cutting off from. I can choose to generate good habits. I can choose to generate bad habits, although it would be rather irrational for me to cultivate bad habits knowing that they're bad habits. But you get the idea that it's habituation and the exercise of choice. Now the goal for the Stoic philosophy from the beginning is to live in accordance with nature. And Epictetus doesn't use the word live so much or talk about a life. He talks about a prohairesis. But the prohairesis is structuring the entire life of a person. It is formed over the course of the life. It can be modified. It is what sort of sets the moral horizons for us. It's what we carry from place to place and position to position and relationship to relationship so that we cannot get away from it. And the goal then is to do what? To bring it into harmony, symphonia, or to bring it into accordance, kata, it's a Greek preposition, with nature, physis. Now that doesn't mean to just live naturally or do what comes naturally, man, because in many respects, as human beings, our habits have already been formed poorly. We inhabit societies and cultures that tend to form us and form us in ways that the Stoics consider to be ultimately irrational and harmful for us, teaching us lessons about what really matters and what doesn't matter, that deviates from the realities of things. And so to live in accordance with nature, or to bring one's faculty of choice into accordance with nature, means to bring it into accordance with what human nature is when it's fully developed. Not just eating and rolling around and enjoying yourself in the grass and all those sorts of things, being spontaneous. It really means thinking about what is a human being. And so this requires two things. It requires a lot of work in order to restructure the desires, the aversions, to bring the judgments under control. And emotions, by the way, for the Stoics, are in fact something that arises from judgments. To gradually have mastery or some sort of rationality to our choices. All of that takes a lot of work, worth capitalizing here, right? But it also takes a right understanding of things, and that's why the Stoic philosophy is there, to provide that proper understanding, not only in terms of ethics, but also in terms of the what they call logic, or how to actually think these matters through and not get taken in. So all of that has to do with prohairesis. This is another important point, this is where the real good and the real evil for human beings exists. Epictetus stresses this over and over and over again. We tend to think that other things that are extrinsic to our faculty of will are really good, like wealth, for example, or having a nice body, or health even, or holding office, having a cool chalkboard. I mean, if to take this as a great example, if I think that my good lies in here rather than in my faculty of will, I'm in trouble. And notice, I am using my very faculty of will or choice to make that thing a value, a good, to mistakenly see it. So this is where our real good and evil exist. Outside of the prohairesis, there are things that well, are not totally neutral, are primarily neither good nor evil. They can be of the class of the preferred, they can be of the class of the rejected, but they're ultimately going to be traced back to where the real locus of good and evil are, which is within the human person, within the most determinative part of the human person, the part that the good news is we can, in fact, use to work on itself. So, two examples of this would be, we can choose how we deal with, here's another key Stoic idea, appearances, external impressions. It's also translated as Fantasia is the Greek for it, imaginations. We choose how we address those. And that's part of what this faculty can do, right? How we fulfill our duties, not only towards ourselves, but towards all sorts of other people. And if we believe in the divine, in relation to the divine as well. All of that is a matter of the prohairesis. Because if you're choosing, for example, not to fulfill your duties as a father, as a child, as a spouse, as a citizen, you are not placing your prohairesis in accordance with fully developed human nature. You may feel like you are being natural, but you're not really harmonizing with what is really there as far as potential. One other thing that I wanted to sort of close on, in chapter 17 of book 1, there's this wonderful phrase there that I think wraps all of this up, particularly that reflexivity. He talks about prohairesis compelling, I put moral purpose here, it should be prohairesis compelled prohairesis, or moral purpose compelled moral purpose, or the faculty of choice compelled the faculty of choice. The actual Greek for this is very short, tout esti prohairesin prohairesis. And the verb there is a little bit earlier, enankasen, compelled, to drive. It's in the past tense, so that's why I have a past tense here. But the whole idea is that one of the things that is so different about this is the fact that it is indeed reflexive. We have a choice about what we want our overall structure of our faculty of choice to look like, not just here in the present, where we can't radically change it in the present, but for the future. And the past doesn't have to completely determine our present or our future in that respect. So if we were a bad person in the past and we realize that that's the case, and we understand the motivations, the desires, the aversions, the judgments that led to bad behavior, we have the capacity to change that. We can use our currently not so good moral purpose or prohairesis to compel itself to become a bit better. We do that by doing the work, we do that by choosing, we do that through habituation, and we do that guided by the right understanding which the Stoic philosophy is supposed to be providing. Notice that part of that right understanding is the existence of prohairesis and the nature of it.